join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you will please remain standing as we remember those that have given their life for this country, overseas, and those here at home, especially James C. Phillips and Rita Donaldson. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. We're going to begin with a public hearing for Section 8 PHAF 5-year plan. I need a motion to open public hearing. Okay, I have a resolution. Did you want to?
I have, good evening, I'm Nancy Williams, I'm with Joseph B. Mastriani Incorporated, the company that administers the Village of Highland Falls Section 8 program. We were here 2 months ago, so I'm not sure if there's any questions about the plan this evening. We did a brief presentation a couple months ago for folks that were here at that meeting. I did bring just an overview of the plan with me, and I have a few more copies if anyone else would like a copy. You're welcome. This meeting this evening is a requirement of the Section 8 program. It's required that every 5 years we revisit our administrative plan and our operating plan, and any changes that are made are put before the municipalities, because it's technically your Section 8 program. We just do the administration for you. The document was provided to the village, I believe. Anyone that wanted to see it could stop into the village to see it. There are no substantive changes, I can tell you that. There were some modifications in operating, clarifying some things around how we count certain kinds of income, how we treat grandparents who are caring for grandchildren was a change in how we do some operating, but nothing substantive. The plan, I do have a copy of the highlights if anyone's interested in seeing that as well. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Questions? I'm good.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Any other comments? No? At this time,
I got a question though, Pat, on the administrative, how do they like allocate these Section 8s and to whom do they go to?
In every program, I speak specifically to your program. The vouchers are determined by the funding, so you'll see on the report that you have a copy of the overall funding that is allocated to the village. That is, we use a formula that has been tried and true to allocate that to a number of vouchers based on the current fair market rent for the region. And then we choose, you currently have 65 vouchers in the community. Anyone that applies for the program is put on a waiting list in the Village of Highland Falls. There happens to be about a 30-month waiting list in the Village of Highland Falls. You have to meet the requirement of living in the village or working in the village to be eligible to be put on the waiting list. You have to meet that requirement again when your name comes to the top of the waiting list. So however long you're on the waiting list, when your name comes up for issuance of a voucher, you still have to meet the requirements of the village's Section 8 program before a voucher is issued.
But you have to be local in order to get on that
You have to
particular
be-
list.
Yes, you have to work or live in the community where you're applying for Section 8.
You have to either work or live in the community.
Yep. And you have to meet that requirement both at the time you're placed on the waiting list and again when the voucher is issued.
Because they don't take them from any other areas and bring them up into our...
No. No. The next person on the list, you'll see the date next applicant to be offered assistance. So the next person on the waiting list joined the waiting list in April of 2012. So they've been on the waiting list. I don't know when a voucher will be issued to them. It could be as soon as a month from now. It could be a year from now, depending on the turnover in the vouchers.
Okay, and what do they do from the time they sign up to the time that you get them a place to stay?
We don't get them a place to stay. We assist them with their housing costs. They're required to find their own housing. It has to meet our housing quality standards, the standards that are set by the federal government. to meet the minimum standards that are set for habitability, particularly in this area, and you'll see there's inspections, there's some inspection information. We do annual inspections. Lead-based paint is a big issue for any family that has a young child and who lives in an older unit. They're required to find their own housing, and then we help with the cost of the affordability for that unit. So the formula works out to be about 30% of a participant's income is used to go towards their housing, and then we subsidize the remainder of that. Yeah.
And when somebody is in subsidized housing, does somebody check it to see that a lot of other people haven't moved into that apartment also?
Yes, and they're
On a
required.
constant basis?
Yes, and they're required annually to provide documentation that certifies to who's in the family. It's called a TIF. It's tenant information form. They're required annually to fill out that form to provide information on every family member that lives in the house, to provide a social security number for every family member that lives in the house, and to provide any income information for every family member that lives in the house. There are very clear guidelines about who can be in the household, who is eligible for assistance, and how long a guest may stay in the household, if there is a guest, an overnight guest, for example. The units are inspected annually. We are the only Section 8 office in a program the size of the program that we administer that has a full-time fraud investigator or program compliance officer who does any kind of checking and verification for any report that's received in our office that something isn't as it should be.
So they have to have a report in order for you to go out and check something?
Well, I mean, we have to have somebody that in the community that says there might be a problem here. If the inspector is doing an inspection, they might say, gee, it seems odd to me, there's a pair of size 14 work boots and it's a household of 3 with 2 children. So there are many things that people will look for. We verify all the income information, we verify the household composition. Our program, the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, is in town about monthly. So we have people in the village on a regular basis.
Right, but you're not going, just popping in, knocking on people's doors if they're home or?
No.
How long can a guest stay?
And I don't want to misstate this, but it's in the administrative plan, and it's so many nights in a calendar year. And I really don't want to misstate it. I can get you that information, I'd be happy to provide it to you. It's what would constitute sort of a normal guest policy of anybody coming in and maybe spending a couple of nights on the weekend. It certainly takes into account that the intent of the program is not to subsidize a non-household member's living situation.
Checking on them manually doesn't seem like it's enough though.
That's where, and it's in our community, it's tougher because nobody really wants to tell on somebody else. But that's where it comes into play. If people are abusing the system, you can do it anonymously, you don't have to, correct?
Absolutely.
You can do it anonymously, but that's where the key comes down. The only way we're gonna make sure the program's necessary, but it's not necessary for people abusing it, and that's where it comes to play. So, and people know that their neighbor is in a one-family house, and there's 3 different families living in there. We've got to start cracking down on it. And the only way to do that is with people in the community reporting to the proper people. If you don't know who to report it to, let the village know and we'll get it to the proper people. Because that's the only way it's gonna happen. Though all the village employees and whatnot are tasked with that same effort, there's only so many of them. So people that know, this guy's definitely living here, and he shouldn't be. You know, people know. So we're gonna need the help of the community to police this. And just 2 points. You asked if people come from out of the community, they do. But they live here for that period of time. So I'm getting calls on a regular, because I have, as I said before, I have the old Section 8 number as my straight line into the village. We're getting calls on a regular from Brooklyn, the Bronx, 3 hours upstate. We're one of the few villages in the state that has this kind of a Section 8 program. It's very attractive to people looking for a Section. So they will stay on a waiting list for 30 months to move here. My thing is I wanna I wanna help our people first.
Absolutely.
And I wanna make sure our people are standing on their feet. I don't mind helping other people, but that's, this is just me, that's more what a city or a larger community is for, not so much a small rural town. And I tell you what, one of the big reasons why I do support Mastriani, and they know that I'm looking at other programs, but I support Mastriani is because they're a graduate program, and this woman right here that has done a phenomenal job in trying to take Section 8 to the next level, not to have people sit on Section 8 forever. They're one of the few groups out there that doesn't just push the paper and say, all right, next year, everybody's on. They actually aggressively work trying to get people to stand on their own 2 feet, get off the program, and not come back, because they're in good shape. And that's why I'm still holding on to Mastriani, as much as I wanna do what I can to lower the Section 8. They're doing a good job. And I wanna put that out to the community, as much as we want to clamp down on our Section 8, the key is, no matter what, we have to police it. That's the key. We can't have people abusing it, particularly with the 65 families in this small community is massive. And when I talked to the state, he was like, how many? With our number. He couldn't believe it. We have a very large number here. We have to police it, and we have to do what's right. But at this time, when I talk to other state agencies and everyone else, Mastriani's name keeps coming up as the group that does the best job for this program. So we're gonna keep looking at it, and this is not a dead issue. But right now, I believe we have the right people in place to take care of it. Charlie?
Well, this afternoon, I really appreciate the amount of time that Nancy took to answer some of the questions I had. And the self-sufficiency program that the mayor just alluded to, I believe, Nancy, you administer.
I do, and Barb Talbot is here this evening. She is the referral coordinator for the program, so she works most closely with the families here in Highland Falls. We currently have 21 families enrolled on the program. 16 of them are working poor families, which means that they are earning escrow accounts, so that's how we track that. And they are families that are working hard to move themselves from full dependence to less dependence on any kind of public subsidy, not just Section 8 subsidy.
And then just a clarification, I'm not sure if I misunderstood it or what. When someone goes on the waiting list, they have to be living or working here. So they're gonna be on a waiting list for, say, 2 or 3 years. It's not just a case of someone calling up from Brooklyn saying, I want to be on the waiting list. They have to move here, and they're not getting the subsidy. So by the time they get any kind of assistance, they've been a member of this community for a substantial length of time. I think the way it's structured at this time, we really are serving our own people.
And I think it's important to remember 37% of the people that are currently being served by this program are elderly or disabled individuals. So they are certainly people that have a longer expectancy to be on that. That's part of the longevity of the waiting list, is that some people will be on the Section 8 program for the long term, as they should be. If they are folks that qualify, who have lived in this community all their lives, who've worked in this community and want to stay in this community as their income changes, that's really an opportunity for this community to really reach out to help the people that are here. As it is for the folks that are here who are working. You know, the cost of living is very high here, and there are many low-wage earning jobs in this community, and we really have a working poor family FSS and Section 8 program here in Highland Falls.
How would you know who has a voucher if you think that you would want to report somebody?
You can call our office, and our fraud investigator's name is John Patwell. I can't tell you his extension off the top of my head, but
We have that information in the village.
you'll go through the voicemail system. You can call and say, I have a question about a unit that is at 24 Mountain Drive, lower level. Can you verify that that's a Section 8 unit? John would be happy to call you back and say that's not a unit we subsidize, or he may call back and say that is a unit that we have a subsidy on. Is there a problem? We certainly welcome that kind of input. It's not just Highland Falls that we ask the community to help with this. We administer programs from Corinth, New York, down to Highland Falls. We have all of Washington County, all of Hamilton County, Saratoga County, Albany County, Rensselaer County, and Schenectady County, where we have Section 8 programs. That's the nature of the business of the company that I work for. So we ask, we may not know in Rotterdam if someone is living in a subsidized unit, if there are more people in the unit than should be there. So we always ask the communities, this is your Section 8 program. We want you to be proud of the program and to appreciate that the program provides a service that is needed to the people who live in this community. So we welcome your input and your questions to the program.
Any other comments? I'm gonna move with the resolution.
Close.
Sorry, I need to close the hearing. Motion?
Motion.
Take it. Whereas the Village of Highland Falls operates a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and whereas the Village of Highland Falls is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to prepare and adopt a written PHA plan that establishes local policies for administration of the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program in accordance with regulations of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, whereas the Village of Highland Falls has caused a written PHA plan for 2015 to be prepared to establish local policies for administration of Section 8 Housing Choice Program in accordance with the regulations of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and has reviewed such written plans. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of the Village of Highland Falls hereby adopt PHA plan for 2015 for operation of the Village of Highland Falls Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. Can I get a motion to accept the resolution?
I make that motion.
Second?
Second?
Roll call?
Roll call, trustee Mellon,
Aye.
trustee Murphy,
Aye.
Mayor Flynn.
Aye. Okay. Public comment on agenda items? Liaison department head reports. Treasurer?
Good evening, board. Got some items I just need to discuss financially. First thing, I'm going to be handing a financial accounting form to you. This has to do with transfers that we're going to need to do for certain budget items. I'll just quickly detail them out, and then based on when you want it, you can decide on them. The first one is a transfer from contingency to our judgment and claims for our certiorari claim that's been resolved. That total there, 595902, is the portion that's short out of the judgment and claims code. As I mentioned during our budget time, we previously didn't budget for judgment and claims. Now we did, and still we didn't have enough with a lot of the certs out there. So I strongly recommend that you approve the contingency to support this expenditure. Secondly, the beautification around the village. There was no money budgeted for beautification, but obviously there was an effort made to do some beautification with the understanding that there would be repayment from collections from other revenue sources, as discussed previously, like the collection boxes and so on. Right now, the beautification fund is short, but there is some anticipated revenue of $1,500. What I would recommend the board do is transfer $1,500 from the contingency to the beautification fund to cover the beautification expenses, and then when the revenue comes in, the contingency fund would then be replenished with the revenue from that fund, as this bill is due, and you probably don't want to carry this expenditure much longer. Thirdly, it was a very good decision on the board with the demolition on Center Street. Obviously, a lot of the community was happy with it. Problem is we don't budget for something like that. And because of that, the expenditure becomes a pretty big cost. What I recommend the board to do, and I normally don't recommend the use of fund balance to pay for a regular budgetary expenditure, because you allocate fund balance in your budget anyway, with some funding. But there's a direct revenue source for this, and that would be the re-levy of that property's taxes, and that the county would make whole to the village. And so any fund balance utilization would be replenished with that revenue. So it would not be making an expenditure without a revenue source. So I would recommend that the board support that action, and if the board's agreeable to that, then the document as far as the actual transaction and the increase, which would require essentially a budget adjustment, would then be provided to the board for that activity. Okay, so those are the three budget items, and I would hope and request that you consider those. The actual expenditure amount for the demolition was $47,280. A lot of that amount is because of the issues of asbestos and homes built in the 70s and before, and the probability that they have asbestos and asbestos abatement becomes a very expensive undertaking. So, and then obviously the village with a lot of older homes, that becomes a prospect that we're probably going to need to consider if we do have any further scenarios like this. But as part of the bills and claims, I'd like the board to consider approving the payment of $47,280 to Boyce Excavation, so that we can pay that vendor this week instead of having to wait another 2 weeks to pay it. Okay? Okay, next, in front of the board, I provided a revised copy of the procurement policy. I know that's later on down the list, and you know, certainly it's nothing you have to weigh in on this second. But I just wanted to ask if there were any questions. I will highlight a couple of things that changed here. If you look on page 3, there are 3 asterisks. One for an amendment that was done in 2011, another for an amendment that was done in 2012, which was a local law, and an adopted board action in June of 2013. All of them have been incorporated into the policy so that we've updated the policy. The last actual update, there was activity, but the actual policy wasn't updated since 1992. So this is an opportunity to maybe just get everything consolidated into a policy. So the first item is has to do with the fact that the amount of public works contracts, the maximum amount went up from $19,999 to $34,999, essentially $35,000. And the 2 written fax quotations or written requests for proposals were added to that. The second one refers to the issue of best value. We discussed that a month or so ago about the fact that boards aren't necessarily constrained to go with the lowest bidder if they can justify that there was a best value obtained from the decision to go with a certain vendor, even if it was a little bit more money, that as long as it's justified why and it can be substantiated, best value can be incorporated. The law requires that you actually adopt a best value provision, and that's what 5A basically covers. It's direct language from the state provided documentation. Finally, this board decided in December of last year, I believe it was December, but in this last term, that capital expenditures for furniture, fixtures, and machinery, the threshold be set at $1,000. That was to allow purchases of items that were less than $1,000, not require the quotations and the RFPs that were asked for before. So as long as the useful life was 5 to 10 years, you allowed the $1,000 threshold, and I recommended that, and that's been incorporated into this document. Otherwise, the rest of the document is basically in line with the law, and I recommend you approve the updates to the document. One other item, the loader that was repaired by Hoffman Equipment, I'm needing to get the estimate from Hoffman Equipment just for the loader repair, so that we can then go back to the insurance company to get full insurance payment for that item.
Should they be two separate entities, those bills?
Yeah, right now the bill that we have is a consolidated bill with hydraulic repairs and the motor repair. And what's happened is that the insurance company has fixated on the cost of the engine and not considered the cost to install the engine. So right now, the board the village is being compensated for an engine that was in a crate. But the actual cost of installing it with the hoses and the oil and everything else, that was not paid for when it should have been. And one of the, in my opinion, excuses was that, well, hydraulic work was done and that we're not paying for. Well, that's fine. The problem is the invoice provided by Hoffman jumbled all the repair together into one repair bill, so it's very difficult to differentiate what was done for what. So I asked the department head to provide a copy of the itemized repair bill for the engine repair only, so that we can go back to the insurance company to get full payment for that. And then obviously out of the contractual, the hydraulic repairs to the loader would come out of budgetary funds. So time is of the essence there, because we need to resolve that bill, because Hoffman is due that money, okay? Those are the main items. I did just want to quickly remind the board also about a recommendation that I feel would be warranted, and that is if budgets are 50%, more than 50% spent, that at this point in the year, we're 5 months into the year, that the department heads get approval by the trustees to spend money. I don't know if you want to set a threshold of 500, 1,000, but you have some budgets that are very overspent. Most of the reasons are legitimate expenses that were unforeseen, but we don't want to get into a crunch come next March where overspent budgets and those departments are coming to the board for money because they have absolute required things that they have to do and they don't have funding remaining for it. So I would recommend not a full austerity, but a calculated, evaluated austerity on budgets that are, the 04s that are spent over 50%.
I agree, I think we can actually do that right now, that doesn't need to be a motion, it just means to be something we enact with the departments. I think $500 for anyone that is over 50, I almost want to say everyone anyway, because the bottom line is, we took on a lot of projects this year, and two of the major ones were the finalizing the contracts for the police and DPW that were several years back and not budgeted for to the full extent. So we took that on, that has hit our budget heavy, as well as this demolition and a couple other major projects we took on this year. So I agree. This is not a move because we don't have money. This is a move, and this is why, again, I appreciate Ed with his comments. This is a move to make sure that we are not borrowing in 3 to 4 months. This is to make sure that we are on track in March, April, and May. So we will tighten the belt, and then come the spring, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, any questions? Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Fire.
The fire department had a very good turnout for the Fall Foliage Festival. We also were assisted by the New York State Office of Fire Prevention, which provided their sprinkler and smoke demonstration trailer. A lot of the children in the community enjoyed going through the trailer and learning about smoke detectors and sprinklers. Also, the fire department plans to do another training of our membership in smoke detector installation for that program, which I think, as everyone in the community is aware now, fire department is providing detectors and installing them. We do have a list of people, and right now the seniors in the community are being installed first. The intermediate school also took part in a poster contest on fire prevention that wraps up this month with a fire department visit and an ice cream social for the winning student class. And members of the fire department who do the fire prevention program will be visiting Holy Angels School later this month. That's it.
Police.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, citizens. In October, we had a busy month. The dispatch fielded 2,091 walk-in, phone calls, and radio runs. We had 19 arrests. There was 3 arrests that we had outside of the village. It happened in Fort Montgomery early in October. That was a drug arrest. It was our investigation. Unfortunately, the way things unfolded, everything happened down in Fort Montgomery. So that one we don't have on this document. We issued 179 summonses, 139 in parking and meter tickets, and 40 in traffic. This is a late addition. I didn't have this on the report prior to you guys getting it. Meter collections, we have 4,500 if you want to add that on there. That with these other items here, comes up to a total of $5,387.25 for the month. Last month, there was some residents that spoke out about children under 14 riding without helmets, neither it's a bike, scooter, or what have you. My recommendation, if you ride a bike, inline skates, or skateboard, or scooter, it doesn't matter what age you are, wear a helmet. Particularly, we're going to be concentrating, and I put an order out to our members, that if they observe any children that are 14 and they're identified as 14 and under, to identify them, let them know that they need a helmet, find out who their parents are so they can tell their parents that they've been spoken to by the police, they're required by law to have a helmet, and we're going to give them a warning the first time. If it happens again, well, then a summons is going to be issued. So that directive's been put out. That's to hopefully get some of these kids to wear helmets, but everybody should be wearing a helmet. I have Officer Brandt working on getting bike helmets and car seats, because there are some children that I spoke to that said, well, we don't have helmets, we can't afford them, whatever the reason might be. Well, we're going to try to get them some helmets so they don't have any more excuses. The holidays are coming, so the Highland Falls Police Department will be out there to do seatbelt, aggressive driving, cell phones, DWIs. We have money from the state and from the county, and we plan on putting it to good use. That's all I have if there's no questions.
2 things. One, I want to commend Chief Scott on the fact that I've been asking the department heads to give more than just the numbers, because people fall asleep on the numbers and they don't really listen to them. We need more of a narrative, and not only to give a narrative today, but to give an answer to response from the last meeting. And I really appreciate that's important, and that's a response to the community. 1. 2, you have some news for us about a test.
Oh, yes. Some of our officers took the sergeant's exam back in June. We finally got the results. I don't know what the holdup is with the state and county. However, the results came out. 2 of the officers that took the test passed the test, and I'm hoping to move forward by the next meeting to promote one of those officers to sergeant.
Thank you. I need you for exec for 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Don't hate me.
All right.
Do you have any other? Do you have any reports?
No, it's not.
Moving on to the mayor's report, we did get a letter from Vision. They will be having the Winterfest in Memorial Park on Saturday, December 6th, 2014. More information on that will follow. Speaking of Vision, they do a phenomenal job every winter with the decorations. We want to work with them again to make sure that they have help. This is basically Vision, the Garden Club, and the majority of clubs in our community still do not have the representation of the 30 and 40-year-olds here in the community, let alone the 20-year-olds. We need to step up. 20, 30, 40-year-olds, you need to get involved in these. You don't have to, an hour a month. Really, sometimes that's all it takes. We've got to get, because I'm gonna ask for Vision, when we're doing their Winterfest and their decorations, even if you can just help for that. Plan on it, we'll have more information of when they're gonna start the decorating, because it may be prior to Thanksgiving this year. They may do the majority of the decorating right before Thanksgiving. So be ready for that. A couple hours isn't gonna hurt anyone, and it really does feel good, and it makes you feel real positive about being part of this community. But we really need more people. There's 5 or 6 different organizations you can be a part of, if you believe in Highland Falls and Hometown USA, it's time to get involved. With that, with the beautification fund, not always asking for money. I'm asking for money. I'm not asking for money from people who don't have it. We've got some money from the green bins that are gonna cover some of the stuff we just did in the fall. But we wanna keep going, and we wanna take it up a notch every year, which means we are going to put more money in our beautification fund next year, but we really didn't have any in for this year. So those individuals or businesses that want and like what's going on in the community as far as beautification, feel free, drop off a check to Village Hall, put beautification on the bottom, and we'll put it to good use. Again, I'm not gonna keep asking for money, but for those that have it, feel free to bring it, because we can use it. The community food drive is coming up, and if anybody wants to help out with that, they can call John and Pat at 446-2020. That'll be the second and third week in November. I would like to just comment real quick. We went to the Thayer Award for Condoleezza Rice, and we made a lot of contacts, a lot of networking. And by accident, I met Major General Carl McNair. Talked to him about a half an hour. He went to West Point as well as came back several times to teach. And what a pleasure it was to talk to him. He had mentioned 2 or 3 things, and then he had talked about books from Colonel Redder. And I haven't read them. And so he went ahead and sent copies of both books to the village. So we have him here. What a great guy. And the reason I bring him up is because we're breaking a lot of walls down. For people that live outside college towns, when I was in Florida, same thing. You know, the people inside the university, nobody likes them from the town. They're university people. And then they, in turn, don't deal with the locals. A lot of walls have been broken down over the last 10 years or so. And if you still have issues with people on West Point, or they have issues with us, the key is to talk to some of them. Because we all have people that no one likes in their community. And we all have great people in all of our communities. And there are a lot of great people in our community and a lot of great people on West Point. And together we make a phenomenal community. So I bring this up because just another one, he's a graduate, and what a great thing, out of nowhere, he just sent the books to the village and with compliments and hopes if anyone wants to read them, feel free, because they're actually pretty cool. I started reading one. We will be putting the spending freeze on, and I appreciate Ed bringing that up. We're doing it, well, at the next department meeting, we'll talk to them at a $500 cap.
50% of the budget spent.
Correct. This past weekend, we mentioned it at the last meeting that was coming up. This past weekend, Dolly Vanzetta and Louis Palella were honored by the Senior Club for Italian Man and Woman of the Year. And though they didn't, the village did give them a proclamation each. It wasn't something that was done publicly because that was the structure for the evening. So I would just like to recognize them with the proclamation from the village, because it's important, particularly these 2 individuals, not because of their age, because they're up there, but because of their accomplishments. Because they have done, there are people that have come to 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they've done things, but not like these 2, and not the commitment they've given to this community. Mayor's proclamation, whereas Italian Americans have flourished in all areas of our public and economic life while preserving their proud Italian traditions. And whereas service members, they have defended the liberty and integrity of the United States. And whereas the Highlander Senior Club have chosen to honor as Italians of the Year, Dolly Vanzetta and Louis Palella, who have made immeasurable contributions to their family and church, and have dedicated their knowledge and skills to the growth of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Highland Falls extend to Dolly Vanzetta and Louis Palella its joyful expression of gratitude for their service and commitment to their families, friends, and the residents of the community, and offer its best wishes for good health and prosperity for many years to come. And that is the village's proclamation to those two, and we thank them and wish them well. One other proclamation going out this week, Tuesday, next Tuesday, is Veterans Day. There will be a Veterans Day event at the fire department at 10 a.m. sharp. We ask the entire community to come out, because that is another area, living right next to West Point, we have a lot of veterans, but not a lot of active veterans. We are asking those veterans, we only have one organization. We used to have 2 to 3, now we have one organization, the American Legion. And on a good day, you get 5 or 6 guys showing up. And again, most of them are part of the Seniors Club. So we know we have a lot more veterans in the area. To accomplish more for the veterans, we need to get the veterans more involved in the American Legion. But for this event, it is for Veterans Day. It's Tuesday, 10 o'clock at the firehouse. And the proclamation for the veterans reads, Mayor's Proclamation, whereas each year the citizens of the Empire State join with their fellow Americans to set aside a day of peace to honor and salute the men and women who served our nation as members of its armed forces. The armistice ending World War I was signed 95 years ago on November 11th, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The date now reserved to honor all who have served our nation. Whereas on Veterans Day, we publicly commemorate the sacrifices of all veterans. We salute their courage and dedication to the defense of our democracy and sovereignty of freedom-loving nations around the world. Recognizing that it is an extraordinary individual who willingly steps into harm's way to protect others. And whereas America has been truly blessed with an abundance of such men and women who proudly and bravely battled tyranny and oppression in the 2 world wars, Korea, Vietnam, and the Middle East. They stood vigilant in defense of the freedom throughout the Cold War. And today, they still serve us in the quest to rid the world of terrorism. And whereas these special citizens, our veterans, have learned the important principles of service, dedication, and discipline, and know well the true meaning and value of life and liberty, we owe them an inestimable debt of gratitude for what they have done for us, and continue to do to make a better and safer tomorrow for generations of Americans. And whereas the O'Connell Doyle Post, number 633, the American Legion, Town of Highlands, Memorial Post number 92656, the veterans of foreign wars of the United States and other patriotic and civic organizations, excuse me, join in rededication to the task of achieving and ensuring peace. Now therefore, I am Patrick Flynn, the Mayor of the Village of Highland Falls in the state of New York, do hereby proclaim and designate November 11, 2014 as Veterans Day, and respectfully ask all citizens of this community to participate in appropriate patriotic ceremonies and to display the flag of our country on this day. If you can't make 10 o'clock, there are other ways that you can honor the veterans. Happens only a couple times a year, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. It's not too much to ask. So please be a part of it. Excuse me. You sound like you want to say something.
But I just, do you have the library bazaar on your list?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're funny. Election Day is tomorrow. Please get out and vote. We need everyone to come out, voice their opinion. This is what the whole process is about. There is a Election Day roast beef dinner, and that is tomorrow night. Seatings from 5 to 6:30, takeouts from 4 to 5, and that is United Methodist Church of the Highlands. We have a fantastic dinner, roast beef and all the trimmings, with pumpkin and apple pie. And that is, again, that's tomorrow for Election Day. Seatings at 5 and 6:30, takeouts from 4 to 5 p.m. at the United Methodist Church. The center. The center is going strong, doing a lot of great things. Ann Molina, Brian Allward, and all the people over the center are doing a fantastic job.
I mentioned it before, but Desiree Talley, who had done the cancer walk, what a phenomenal example of young adults taking their place in our community. Also, Desiree Coyle, working through the center as well, is looking to head up the toy drive to try and coordinate the different groups that do a toy drive and work it through the center. Another fantastic example of our young adults stepping up. We need more of that, and I'd love to see more of these people step up. Senior Center, the Knights of Columbus Hall Senior Center. Do you want to give us a quick report?
Yeah, senior center's all done. We had a punch list, well, completely done. John Hager wrote us up on a few small items. Most have been resolved. Kevin was supposed to finish the last couple things up today. He didn't get a chance to stop in and get that, but it's just the removal of some rubbish inside in the furnace room. Electric or gas range that's no longer working, and to mount the provisions on the wall for places of assembly, the inhabitants per room. Other than that, everything's done, the heat's working, it's all cleaned up, painted, the floors are down. The emergency exit light signs are up. Everything seems to be fine. We're just looking at some way of transitioning this over and to someone to manage the keys for access. We don't have a plan in place at this moment for that, but we'll be working on that. I'm sure that we'll be discussing that very shortly.
And that's short time is over. So we're discussing it right now. Moving into discussion for Senior Center. Just so we have it in record, we're actually gonna work on this and bring information back to the board. But as far as board discussion, we had talked briefly. I do have one or two volunteers, senior volunteers, that are willing to man the center now during certain hours. Talking to several seniors, the main hours of occupancy for them seem to be 10 to 3. If there are senior individuals, groups, however, that want to utilize the senior center after that, the thought at this time is that the police will open and close the building, similar to the Pavilion Row Park. There will be keys available at the village and the police department if there's an issue or an emergency. And at this time, one of the people that we get to be a full-time volunteer, which hopefully we will turn that into a paid position, because when the clerks called around to the different centers, senior centers, that is one of the constants that they've had, is that we can't rely on a volunteer force to take care of a building that we have to pay for and occupy. So initially, we don't have any money budgeted for it, and I would rather open it sooner than later so that we can do it with a volunteer force to begin. The ultimate goal is going to be to move this under recreation. Bob, I hope you're watching. We would love to move this under recreation, under the town, because that's where it belongs. When we've also called around in many of the senior centers, they are under that sort of umbrella, because that puts whoever they have, whatever employees they have in the senior center, under a department head. You need that. You can't just have the senior center floating out there in the middle of nowhere.
For scheduling and everything else.
Scheduling, but also it takes on even more. The Highlanders do a good job of what they do, but they only scratch the surface of what the senior center could be and what the senior programming could be. Under recreation, if they have the paid people, there needs to be more programming for the seniors. If we're gonna put money in this building, I wanna see it being used from 10 to 10. I want programming in there, and to know that if it's 5 seniors that are coming in at 7 o'clock to do something, then it's 5 seniors, and we have it there and they have a place. But right now, there's only so much they're doing. So the building, in my opinion, will be underutilized. So the only way to really fully get the building to be fully utilized is to get it under rec, because we don't have the resources or people to commit to really giving that building what it needs. So, but right now, we're gonna get open, possibly next week. If we meet all the punch lists, possibly next week. We will let the seniors know as soon as possible, and we'll take it slow, and we'll respond to the seniors' needs. So that's basically what we're talking
It's
about.
important to have some, especially going into this time of year, we need somebody in there every day just to check the things that are leaks and
Exactly.
quality of damage or.
We've already made the improvements, so we wanna make sure they stay improvements. And just as the understanding, the loan, the grant we got, the program won't take effect until we actually open the building, which we haven't opened the building. So we've owned it for a year and a half-ish. The 10 years that we have to occupy the building won't start until it's actually open to the seniors. Okay.
It was October 31st.
I believe you. Just give us your,
Oh, another date to remember is November 15th, coming Saturday. The Friends of the Library Holiday Bazaar will be that date from 10 to 4 at the library. There are quite, well, Mary Ellen, how many vendors do we
We
have?
have 22, I believe.
22 different vendors for holiday gift purchasing. And also the Friends of the Library, which has just published a sensational cookbook. Cookbooks will be for sale, and different members of the Friends are taking cookie and dessert recipes, and they will be for sale on that date, and so you'll get to sample recipes that are in the cookbook, and cookbooks are going fast, so be sure to stock up when you have the opportunity. I think that covers it.
all right. Under discussion of sergeant's position, that is something we are gonna be talking about, and we would like to fill as soon as possible. We'll be talking about it in exec, because it's a employment issue. But just so people know, we're gonna be, because they did pass the test, we are gonna fill that position immediately, and it's needed. Moving on to new business. I need a motion to approve the minutes as written, regular meeting October 20th, 2014. Do I have a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
I have a request for training for water plant operator Jack Sibley to attend the Hudson Valley Water Works Conference Class, 8 AM to 3 PM, November 13th in Montgomery, New York, at a cost of $30. Do I have a motion?
You do?
Second?
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to appoint claims manager to handle the 207C applications for the PBA union contract.
Motion to appoint our clerk, Gina Taylor.
I think that was, okay, it was contractual, wasn't it in the language of the contract that we had that?
We have to officially,
Okay.
we have to officially nominate it so that it's in the books. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is everybody in favor? So moved, sorry, Gina. I need a motion to approve the procurement policy as written and checked. The procurement policy before you. You have it before you, any questions? Do you have a motion?
So moved,
Second? All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Budget transfers. I need a motion to transfer from the A.1990.1990 account to the A1930.0400 account. It's contingency to judgments and claims in the amount of $5,959.02. It's cover tax refund due to First Niagara.
I make that motion.
Second?
Second,
Approved. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to move the account A1990.990 to account A7120.0400, contingency to beautification contractual, amount of $1,500 to cover the village's beautification expenses.
So moved.
And I need a motion. Well, where are we going with the, is he still here?
No, you're right.
The demolition of 109 Center, 47, was that just to pay, or do we need to move money on that?
Yeah, we wanted to pay.
We're paying it.
Yeah.
I mean, that we'll approve that with the bills and claims, but do we need to move money for that?
I believe you do, right, Alex? Gina?
You have to, yeah, that you agreed to take it out of fund balance
Right.
to pay
Pay
the
out of
bill
fund
and
balance.
then add it
I
to
need a
your
motion to move
bills.
the money out of fund balance in the amount of $280 to cover the demolition of 109 Center.
Make that motion.
Have a second?
Second.
I need a motion to approve the bills and claims for the year 14-15 in the amount of $118,000, $226.43. Do I have a motion?
Yes. Plus voice,
Plus
text to be.
the 47,000.
Plus the $47,280. Do I have that motion?
You do.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And before we move on.
Public
No. No. What's that? No. I have something to read on behalf of Mr. Brown. As the next slate of offices to be filled on the village board will be published this week for the general election to be held on this coming March. Excuse me, Mr. Brown has asked me to announce on his behalf that he will not seek re-election. He says that it has been his honor and privilege to serve the voters of this community for the past 22 years. But feels it is time for someone else to exercise the day-to-day office responsibilities with this board going forward. It is his intent to continue to serve the community officially until April and unofficially for years to come. And we know he will. As a personal side, I would like to thank Mr. Brown and say that he is a great asset to this board, who has done an exemplary job for his very long time. The individual who will assume his position will have very, very big shoes to fill, and that is a fact. Mr. Brown has not just represented this board, but he is on several boards, and when I say for years, minimum 20 years. Besides the church, besides the African American Men's Club. Very active in our community, and he will continue to be active. And he will continue to have influence here on the board after he leaves in April. And but he wanted us to know, wanted people to know that, so that, as we said before, we are looking for more people from the community to step up and be active. And unless some of the old guard wants to come back, preferably some younger people, it's your time. It's your time to start making a difference in this community. Public comment. We'll talk about that after. I didn't know that's what you wanted. Public here, no, public comment, no? Sweet. At this time, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session, to discuss specific employee and personal matters. Sorry? We good?
No, I'm asking Gina a question.
Okay.
But you forgot to say that the Veterans Day speaker is an O'Neill High School graduate.
You know what? I did. For those that aren't aware, Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Black Jr. is a graduate, a 1990 graduate of O'Neill. He is the speaker for Tuesday, next Tuesday at the Veterans Day event. And just another bonus for you to come and meet him, as well as hear a fantastic speech. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? Second? Thank you.